Hi everyone, my name is Xavier. This is the third part of the movie collection series, so now we're going from Blu-rays E to L. Not much to say in the introduction. I will say though that there has been a little bit of updates. I showed off Conan the Barbarian in my last video, and they just recently announced actually that it will have a 4K release by Arrow. So that means it's going to be on my collection, and I'll probably get it when it comes out in January. The new 4K version of it. I heard it's going to be very good, and it's going to be different version. It has different cuts, and it's great packaging. I'm probably going to get it with the sequel as well, which I haven't seen yet. This is just to say, like in advance, I do have Sweeney Todd on Blu-ray, but I'm not going to have it soon because they revealed there's going to be a 4K of that as well. So if you want to hear my thoughts about Sweeney Todd, quick and simple, love the movie, really resonated for me. Johnny Depp is great and everything like that. If it comes out soon, it might be showcased in this series, but I don't think it will be announced. I think, well, I mean, it's revealed, but we don't know when it will come out individually. With that said, let's just move on to the rest of the video. So first up, we got El Camino, Breaking Bad movie, which was on Netflix, but was distributed by Sony. I know some people aren't the biggest fan of the movie, and I get it, because it feels a bit unnecessary. I think what's his name? Vince Gilligan, he said initially what was happening to Jesse at the end of the series, and then he made the movie afterwards, and it's some people say they prefer his original answer. The movie is actually great. The issue is just, of course, there's not much happening in the story, and that's why it feels, some people say it's disappointing. But as a extra bit of that Breaking Bad universe, it's still a great send off to that series before Better Call Saul happened. So next up, we got Enchanted. I think it took a while for it to actually get on Disney Plus, so that's why I got the Blu-ray. It's a good movie. I remember this movie when it was marketed a lot when I was a kid, when it was coming out. It's a very unique film. You got the 2D animation, then the cartoon goes into the real world, and so you have Amy Adams, it's a nice satire. It's obviously it's Disney, so it's not going to go super heavy. From what I've heard, it was developed as an R-rated film, but of course, Disney's not going to do that. But over time, every now and then it's a nice watch. It's a very, fun, breath of fresh air. I haven't heard good things about the sequel. I haven't seen it yet, but from what I've heard from the story and the overall product, it just sounds like it's going to be disappointing. So I haven't seen it yet. As for the original, very very good, very fun watch. I think it's now on Disney Plus, but it took a long time for it to get out. I think they waited until the sequel came out for it to release. Next up, okay, this one I have to talk about a bit because I don't know about anyone that really knows about it. Evolution. So, if you don't know what this is, it is a movie directed by Ivan Reitman, so the guy who did Ghostbusters, and basically this is just Ghostbusters, but with aliens. Now, this film did not do very well. I heard it was a little like a cartoon series, but it kind of fell into obscurity, and there's reasons why. It's not you hear, oh, the guy who directed Ghostbusters did one with aliens. It's not as good as that premise makes it out to be. The pacing's weird. The humor is a bit hit and miss. The casting isn't the worst. These aren't bad actors. You got Julianne Moore. You got David I can't pronounce his name, from the X-Files. And you got Sean William Scott, who I have to get. I'm trying. I have a picture of him. I just don't. My phone is just charging at the moment, but I'll have to show it one day. Which I do have a picture of me and Sean William Scott as a kid. I like this guy. And yeah, it was a weird movie because it had the right pieces, but it just never clicked. I think it may have to do with the actors not being strong choices, aside from maybe Julianne Moore at the time. At least with Ghostbusters when it came out, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Harold Ramis. They were big on SNL, and they had a few hit movies at the time. This was like, uh, everyone. It's either that everyone is no one knows about them, or they only appear like in one movie or two movie that like aren't amazing. These big blockbuster hits, like even like American Pie, which would probably be like the biggest thing from Strong and Scott. It's not like Lord of the Rings level of popular. Not everyone has seen it, and he's not even the main character. He's like a side character. So yeah, like it was a weird movie. It's honestly not the. It's like we should watch it once at least. It has some you know odd moments and some fun stuff. But it has aged. But that's why I have it on Blu-ray. It's a bit of a nostalgic film and also a very unique film in my collection. So let's move on to that. Next up is Fahrenheit 9/11. Yeah. Not much to say. It's the documentary about the whole, you know, event aftermath of 9/11 and the Iraq invasion and everything. So it's a very very well done documentary. Like Michael Moore, he makes fantastic documentaries. This Blu-ray, like I got from Amazon, like you got the slipcover and everything. Um, yeah, I think this might be his best documentary. It sheds a lot of light on the subject. Um, it's funny because it's not really just about 9/11. It's about the Iraq War and the whole military propaganda and everything like that. Like it's not about 9/11's an inside. It's not about that. It's like the effects and how it doesn't correlate. Just a sec. But that's Fahrenheit 9/11. So next up, one I have to talk a little bit about. Fatman, starring Mel Gibson, Walton Goggins. If you don't know what this is, it came out in 2020, so pandemic, so no movies could be released in the theaters. If it looks, it's basic. The premise is basically about someone trying to kill Santa, and Santa's not the jolly self. So already it sounds a bit familiar, like that movie Violent Night, starring David Harbour, where you got a angry Santa like beating up a bunch of people. But this came out 2 years earlier, and it was filmed in Ottawa. Obviously, it's not set in Ottawa, but it was filmed there, and I recognize some of the places here. Even my friend had a story where his friend ran into Mel Gibson at a Senators game when they were filming this movie. Um, the movie, of course, didn't really do the best because coming out in the pandemic, and it fell into obscurity. And it's a shame because I actually think it's a pretty solid movie. Um, you have to temper your expectations though, because you think, okay, from the premise, it's insane and zany and over the top, and it's raunchy. It's like no, it's not like that. It is a dark comedy, but it takes itself seriously. I think that's why some people aren't super aware of it. It's not like a raunchy comedy. It's more that it takes itself seriously. The how absurd the premise is, and that's kind of the whole bit of the humor, as well as Walton Goggins, just hamming it up as the villain. It's a really decent watch. Like that's why I have it on Blu-ray. Of course, of it also being filmed in Ottawa. And also, yeah, like this and Bandit, Mel Gibson just loves to film in Ottawa for some reason. Hope he does more. But yeah, check it out. I think it's on Amazon Prime. It's honestly a pretty fun watch. I know it's not super like hilarious, and you should temper your expectations, especially if you watch Violent Night and you think, oh, it's gonna be like that. It's like no, it's a bit different, and I like it because of how it takes itself seriously. And some of the little like cool real world like what if Santa is real type of like scenarios. So yeah, definitely recommend. Next up, and this is an underrated one. Flightplan. If you don't know what this is, it is starring Jodie Foster. It's about this woman who loses her daughter in an airplane, and no one knows if she was even there on the first place. It's a very solid, I would say, really good filler, maybe until the third act. Obviously, when you reveal what happens, I'm not gonna say it because I don't think a lot of people know this movie, and you probably don't want to get spoiled by it. But the climax in terms of revealing what was going on is a bit underwhelming because you think, oh really, that was it? Like it was just something so simple. Well, that's lame. But like the first two acts were like, it's like, yeah, it's some intense stuff. I really Jodie Foster's great. Um, and it's like they do a good job of trying to figure out what's going on and how you know this something like this could have happened, and everyone reacting to it. And of course, because it was post 9/11, you got to have a little bit of patriotism, and oh, it's the terrorists that are the problem. But like it's honestly pretty well done. Um, Shame that no one really talks about it. I remember the marketing for it. It took me a while to watch it, but I remember the trailers when I on the VHS and everything. It was great. Next up, we got The Foreigner. Great movie. I I think a lot of people were talking about when it came out, but stars Jackie Chan and Pierce Brosnan. It's not like so much of an action movie, more like a thriller where this guy loses his daughter in a bombing, and he demands answers from this government head who used to be tied to the IRA, who claims he has no responsibility, but we find out there's some seediness going on. Martin Campbell did a fantastic job directing this. I love this movie. It's obviously not super action packed, but it's like the story and the direction and the acting. It's just well done. Like, you should definitely check it out. Like, it's fantastic. I think it was on Netflix last time I checked. Next up is Ghost Rider, starring Nicolas Cage. This is a decent film, I must say. Like, it's better than Daredevil, which it was directed by the same guy, by the way. Obviously, because this is pre-MCU, some things are not going to be very like comic accurate. Blackheart, was infamous for looking, nothing like the original way he looked in the comics. Not too much action because they don't CGI budget and everything. Nicolas Cage will definitely be a bit of a divisive choice, but he loves the character, and I love this movie. Like, it's not great, but the character of Ghost Rider is just a cool like concept to begin with, and the fact that Nicolas Cage was dedicated to this movie, and there's the infamous, oh, he had fake CGI abs. No, he actually did train for it, but the problem is that you can't imagine Nicolas Cage, just being ripped for like one scene, but he did it. He's that dedicated. He loved the character. It's a shame that the sequel wasn't good, or made enough money for it to make more like movies, because I really liked this Ghost Rider. I actually prefer the design of this Ghost Rider more than the sequel as well. It's just the classic look. So next up, we got a bit of a not old school, but like flew under the radar. I think it's now into obscurity. The Green Hornet. This is a weird one. If you don't know Green Hornet, classic 50s, 60s show with that starred Bruce Lee, was rebooted, starring Seth Rogen. And this is the weird thing. This is Seth Rogen before he really stuck to the shtick of the stoner guy and the raunchiness. Like, yes, this was after Superbad, but Seth Rogen was still breaking out in Hollywood, so that he was trying to expand his roles a bit. And this was a unique one where he plays like a more serious version of his typical performances, and it's kind of weird. Also, it has Christoph Waltz as the villain. Cameron Diaz is one of her last like live action roles. I don't know the last time we see Cameron Diaz, actually. The last movie she did. But as for like, is it a decent movie, like for being a Green Hornet movie, like a superhero movie? It's honestly like, yeah, like you just have to accept some of the weird creative choices, like the main character of Seth Rogen, like being the Green Hornet himself. I've got I'm forgetting the name. Kato. Yeah, Kato's of course the martial artist. Then you have the Green Hornet that's played by Seth Rogen, and of course I think that's why people were like not into that idea at the time. Like even like this, because even Seth Rogen at the time was still known for these raunchy comedies, even when he was trying to expand out of that archetype. But he was actually kind of good in this movie, and it's a well directed movie. it was kind of unique. It's not perfect. I mean, I like to say all these movies are not perfect, but to be fair, no movie is perfect. Um, but it was like it's surprisingly fun. Like it's a surprisingly decent movie. It's not. It's like it has its issues for sure, but for what it wasn't bad. So yeah, like I'm surprised that they haven't really done another Green Hornet movie. Not with this cast, obviously, but in terms of like doing a reboot or anything, um, it was like it just didn't really do well, and it kind of fell to obscurity. And like no one remembers the fact that Seth Rogen was, in a superhero movie. But you know, next up, Gulliver's Travels, the 10 out of 10 movie, the best movie of all time. This is the most faithful adaptation of Gulliver's Travels. And like you have the pop culture references. You got Jack Black. It's timeless. You cannot you can watch this in a year and it will feel like you watched it in 1999. I know I'm going with this. Yeah, obviously this is an infamous movie for it not being very good. Um, I mean, I watched it as a kid. I have a bit of a soft spot for it. Honestly, I just have a soft spot for Jack Black in general. And the movie itself is, it's fine. Like it's okay. Like I would say it's like very average Jack Black comedy. Like obviously the main issues is that it's not the best adaptation of Gulliver's Travels. It's also a very modern, which means it's going to be dated. And I think some of the aspects are already dated in the movie. Like there's a lot of like products and franchises that were a bit dated when it was coming out. And obviously it took a very different spin, and the humor is going to be mixed. Like it's never going to be a movie for everyone. But honestly, like it has some decent things. I like Jack Black in the movie. It's a bit bold of what they tried to do with the movie. I didn't I mean, the only thing I didn't like about the movie is that the romance with Jack Black and the girl, that was kind of rushed, and like the musical number at the end, that was kind of stupid and cringe. But other than that, it's not the worst. I've seen worse. Like that's the thing. Like for me, a very bad movie has to be devoid of like entertainment. Like you cannot see it like even if it's so bad, it's good. That's good in my books. But if it's like bland and forgettable, yeah, no, like that's a bad movie because I can't remember it. Coming up, Gundala. Now, if you don't know this movie, it's great. So this was a Indonesian movie. Developed basically, this is the Indonesia's version of the MCU. So they started off with this movie, and this is like their own like Indonesian comics. They were trying to do a universe. I heard there were some other movies released after this. I think they released 2 movies since, in like within the last year or so. The problem is that they haven't really been exposed much outside of Indonesia. This was one that they really try to push out a lot. Like it was screened in Toronto Film Festival. Of course, I got the Blu-ray here. I haven't found a Blu-ray for the other movies though. I don't know what's really going on with it. I assume it's probably doing well, but they haven't really done much to showcase them outside of Indonesia, which is a shame because judging off from this movie, I would be curious to see how the other movies are turned out. It's a very unique like superhero origin movie, like for in terms of like low budget, a character that is a bit on the more original. Original. I mean, superhero films a lot borrow from each other, but it's dark. It's got some unique ideas. I mean, it's not like some things do fall flat. Some of the themes are a bit all over the place. The ending is pretty bad. The conflict just completely goes all it's done. It just gets wrapped up anticlimactically, and it sets up within the first movie they already set up the villain for the team up movie, which is a bit ridiculous. But there's some good stuff. I like the costumes. I like the action. The action's really well done, for being low budget. And it does feel very of that country and its history and its politics. It is. You can't really make a movie like this in the U.S. Or in Western view. It's because it's very Indonesian in its like core. So I hope they do release the other movies like on Blu-ray because it's pretty good, and I do recommend this. Like this is a pretty good like superhero movie that's not the typical Marvel or DC. Obviously, a bit on the generic side in areas, but really well done. Next up is A History of Violence by David Cronenberg. Love this movie, fantastic. I don't know. I shouldn't go on too much. I think like it's one of his more popular films. About Viggo Mortensen. He killed some guys in self-defense. Becomes a town hero, but brings up the past of himself, and it's whether or not he could continue on from this. Brilliantly acted. The direction top notch. Howard Shore's score, like that's great. It's the end, like that's the thing. I've noticed like all the endings in the movies tend to be on the weaker side. I wouldn't say the ending's bad. Like I actually like the ending, but it's just that like it does feel like a bit anticlimactic, where it's like okay, he just gets rid of the bad guy and that's it. But the whole theme of the movie really carries it. It's based off a graphic novel, and if you want to go off that, it's one of the best graphic novel adaptations. So I absolutely love that movie. David Cronenberg is a underrated director. Like he can do a lot of stuff, even if it's not his forefront. Next up is Interview with the Vampire, Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt. This is a great one. Obviously, if you don't know anything about the movie, I'm going to leave it at that because trying to explain the movie kind of does the movie a disservice because the best way to experience the movie is if you have no idea what to expect from it. Because if you go in expecting, oh, it's a vampire movie and you got like action and it's, super cool, and it's like, no. I don't even know how to explain it. I could explain it, but it makes it like, it kind of devalues the first time viewing experience. All I can say though is that it's well directed, the acting's great, like Tom Cruise hams it up, Brad Pitt's pretty good, Kristen Dunst I don't know if it's her first movie, but she was great as the little girl. Even Antonio Banderas shows up later in the movie, and he's a pretty good type of villain. Again, it's not an action movie. It's not even like the most violent thing I've seen, in that genre, but it's just a really unique way of doing vampires. Playing around with their own immortality and the relationships and the loneliness, all that. It can definitely get into the bit of the melodramatic, but it's kind of the whole point of the movie. And I think it's like well done. I would want to talk about it, but the thing is, I kind of want you to see it for the first time to sort of understand how the movie plays out. Because if you do have seen it, I think you know what I mean of why I'm not trying to explain the movie, fully in the plot wise. But yeah, top notch recommendation for me. Next up is I, Robot, starring Will Smith. This one is again fell like some of these movies just kind of fell into obscurity. Set in the future, got like these robots being mass produced. Will Smith is trying to solve a murder. He thinks a robot did it, even though it's impossible, and it goes into a conspiracy. All I can say about that. It's a okay movie. It's a Will Smith action movie, so it's him trying to be cool and comedic and funny, and the effects are kind of hit and miss. At the time, like they were nominated for best visual effects, and I think for like the time they were kind of good in terms of showing off all these effects for the world and the robots and everything. But it has aged in a way. Alan Tudyk as the main robot though, he was great. And there's some interesting themes, and some neat action. But it is definitely like you gotta temper your expectations. Like it's like it has some weird like in terms of it's not super action packed. The revelation is like a bit like on the odd side, but it's a pretty decent watch. I would say give it a try. Up next, the Iron Giant. Not much to say here. It's a masterpiece. Brad Bird's film. And like I don't know. I can't really say much. I think everyone has seen the Iron Giant, and you know why it's like a masterpiece. I think the one I have is the has the few deleted scenes incorporated into the theatrical cut, which I like. Obviously, some people will say, "Oh no, just leave it like that." But like it's cool that they restored the deleted scenes and put them into the actual movie. Since they don't really like, aside from maybe the animation looking a bit different, it feels tied nicely tied into the film. And because it was Brad Bird's choice and everything, it works. Yeah, so not much to say other than fantastic movie. If you haven't seen it, what the heck are you doing? All right, the last movie for today. So we've reached L, and The Last Stand starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. This was a movie that was basically debuting his return to action movies after he was the governor of California. He went back. I think he was still in the Expendables films in smaller roles, but this was a movie where he was starring. The classic Arnold's back. And as for that type of Arnold's back in an action movie, it's not bad. Obviously, like this is not gonna really compare to his older stuff. And it is definitely on the generic side. It's just him as a sheriff, hearing about this criminal with a convoy going to pass through his town. He's not going to let them get away. I think it's directed fine. You got some good action. Seeing Arnold's always great, and like it's just a fun movie. It's not anything to really write home about. Like and I think that's why it kind of not really anyone talks about it. It came out. It did, I think, okay at best. The reviews were just. That was the thing. Like people were hoping, like, okay, if Arnold's back, it's gotta be like fantastic. People love Arnold. People love his movies, and if something that's just mediocre, no one really cares. So, yeah, it's a shame. But yeah, it's a decent watch. And yeah, that's really about it for today. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you during the next upload. Have a nice day.